Hello and welcome to On Surviving. My name is Megan and I'm a survivor.
My name is Nobly and I am a survivor.
Together, we're bringing On Surviving to the world because it matters.
It matters to me because alongside the potent fears of our frail hearts is so much hurt, loss, and trust issues that often I had to navigate through all alone with very little resources and zero trust. I am passionate about this project because I get to be the one to tell my story and be that trusting person to help navigate through resources that I never had and hopefully make a difference in people's process of surviving.
And it matters to me because I want others to recognize the deep strength and rich humanity involved in every step of the process of surviving the tragedies life brings many of us. I suffered silently and alone for too long, and I want to help others to find hope more quickly and readily and feel and be less alone in the process of surviving.
On surviving matters. You matter. We matter.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much for joining us here today. We, as always, get started by checking in on how we're showing up today, because sometimes it's awesome, sometimes it's a mixed bag. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Share screen so that we can look at the 7 factors of wellness that we like to check in about. I'll go ahead and mix things up and start myself this time.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. So we do this on a 5-point scale. 5 is awesome, amazing, really couldn't be better. 1, yeah, it really sucks and couldn't get much worse. So I am very happy to say that nothing is a 1 for me. So that's something to be grateful for every day, that is the case. Physically, I am a 4. I only the reason it's not a 5 really is because I have some lingering anxiety with this whole move stuff. Man, change is hard. Change is hard for anybody and brings up a lot of can bring up a lot of anxiety, whether you're prone to it or not, and I sure as heck am. So let's see. It's pretty good. I'm gonna also give it a 4. Just, I mean, honestly, that anxiety thing kind of casts a pall on all of these, so nothing's gonna be a 5 either, which is okay. 4 is pretty darn good. So I'm feeling like I have a lot of good stuff kind of challenging my mind right now. So good brain exercise. Emotionally, I'm going to say I'm at best a 3 right now. It's bordering on a 2, but that's it's the point I'm in with all the change I'm in the process of right now, and grief about leaving this lovely place. Spiritually though, I'm going to give it a 4. Still keeping up my good morning practice, which always keeps me in good touch. Environmentally, one thing I will say that for this, I'll give it a 4 still. I'm still in this beautiful place. And I'm actually going to give props to where I'm going, because recycling, I have to say, is hard here. And I am actually going to be happy to be moving to a place where I can do that more easily in the future. Socially, pretty connected at 4, and occupationally, I'm sorry, exception. That's going to be a 5 because I'm doing exactly what I want. And couldn't be happier about it, except for be the tiny little caveat that I don't get quite as much time to do the stuff I love So maybe it's a 4.5. How about
Yeah,
that?
that works.
How about you, Nobly?
um, I think my physical it's probably about a 4 as well. I don't feel too bad, but I still have knee pain and stuff. Intellectual, about a 4. So, emotional, about a 3. I had to have funeral services for a really good friend over the weekend. That was super hard. Spiritual, 4, maybe 4.5. Environmental, 4. Gets kind of funky in Oregon sometimes with the weather. Social also, I think 4s pretty much across the board for me.
Wow.
So yeah,
Hot damn, that's a good day.
it's not bad. I'll take it.
For
Definitely,
real.
I'll take it.
For real. You might get to commiserate on weather issues sometime, later with Bridget when she joins us, our guest, everybody. As you may recall, we're very excited. She's also joining us from Oregon today. So we'll welcome her in here in a little bit. But yeah, maybe also you two will have a little fun with your, at least being in the same state, even though you're a hot minute away from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are we talking with her about? What are we talking with each other about? We're talking about mental illness, mental health challenges, trauma related challenges, when they show up in the workplace or when they intersect with work. In particular, we're talking about our experiences with that, and we're talking about ways that organizations, employers, coworkers, even can help be part of doing better with that. So, as always, though, because we speak very frankly and openly about our experiences, we also recognize that can sometimes be a trigger for folks. Somebody may be listening and really relate to something we're saying, and then that brings up a lot of memories and can really stir up a lot of stuff. So what we want to say is just remind you, this is yours. Please take care of yourself. Turn it off if you need to. Go get support if you need to. As always, if you're feeling alone and not quite sure where to go, we just want to remind you to take advantage of crisis line support. It's anonymous support. I know for me, when I've used it in the past, that was important to me because I was really struggling with a lot of shame and just embarrassment, or just I didn't know exactly what to say, and it felt awkward calling a friend or a family member. So I called a crisis line, and really encourage you to use those resources. You can use them anytime, anywhere for free. And in the United States, it's just 3 digits at 988. Here in Mexico, we have an 800 number, and that's 800-911-2000. And you can find a host of others from other countries, just by checking it out. Look up suicide hotlines by country on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
All right. So what I am thinking is we're going to have a good time having a lot of conversation talking about ideas and solutions. But first, we want to talk about some of our experiences, and let's see. Nobly, do you want to kind of talk? I mean, we write about this in advance, and we shared that out on our website and on Facebook, and shared around to different groups. And hope you had a chance to read them. If not, we encourage you to do that. But no, you won't be lost, because we'll share some of those highlights here today. So Nobly, I'll hand off to you.
Okay. So, my piece is about mental health and some very traumatic events that have happened in my life. The loss of my only child, my only brother being kidnapped and murdered, extensive domestic violence that lasted for years, abuse at the hands of my mom's boyfriend as a kid, and the physical part of it is I'm in remission from stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma and did 2 years of chemotherapy. And the reason that I'm bringing these traumatic events in the beginning of my story is because I want to paint the picture, that we truly don't know what people's struggles are. And I was diagnosed bipolar 2 and manic depressed PTSD, and so we don't know what people are going through on a regular basis. We just don't know what events are going to come up. And unfortunately they come up when they come up, if we're on the clock or if we're off the clock, or if we're there's no schedule on when these events and these anniversary dates and these things are going to come up. And it's really hard for people to just get up and do the day on a regular basis without having the anxiety or the PTSD or the bipolar or the depression or all those, or even the physical symptoms that those things can bring on as well, that just show up. And we all go through these events, and sometimes it's all that we can do but to curl up in a fetal position and just try to to get through the day, to give ourselves room to breathe. My entire life I've had kind of lower entry level jobs, and I've been horribly judged, and I've not been given any grace for the most part. And I've even been told, your job's on the line if you don't show up, or if your shift isn't covered, or if you go home early. And, it shouldn't be that way. And also being told, 3 write-ups in a total length of employment is grounds for, termination. And, so some things that were not helpful for me was to be forced to explain the details of my mental health diagnosis and or the traumatic events, that I shouldn't have to be forced to explain that, and it definitely wasn't helpful to have my personal business spread like wildfire through the place of employment either.
Hey, can I ask you about, so was that something like your supervisor or something told other people, or yeah. Oh, geez.
Yeah,
that's awful.
Instead of just saying that she's not in for the day, it was my personal stuff. And so that was not good.
Yeah.
And
of course,
then
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm thinking
it's okay.
It's one of those things like we're telling like boldly and openly all of this stuff from our history now, but that's our choice, and it's just never okay
Right.
to be taking that choice away from somebody, especially I don't know if especially is right, but it seems right, especially your employee. So it created a whole lot of extra problems in the workplace that really didn't need to be there, And then it wasn't helpful to be like judged and gossiped about, because my business was put out there and then made to be almost shamed or looked down on, because I maybe had to go home or maybe had to call in due to a traumatic event or mental health. Right.
And so and it was sorry, my mouth is dry. And it wasn't helpful to have to try to get a doctor's note,
Oh.
Well, you can't come back to work unless you have a doctor's note, but it's mental health.
Mhm.
So you can't just like go into an urgent care and have that look the same.
Mhm.
They'll refer you anyway. That was not helpful
Mhm.
either. So but on the positive flip side of that is it was helpful, obviously, to be able to go back to work and have not my stuff not spread,
Mm.
because there were times that I was supported where it was just, she's not going to be in today, and then and so that was better that way.
Right.
And this never actually happened, but I think it would be helpful to do like a 5-minute huddle at the beginning of the shift,
Yeah.
or just a quick how's everybody doing, or just to give opportunity to get something off, or just to feel like what you're going through or how you're feeling matters.
Right.
And then it
Right.
would it would build rapport among the employees, and if something happened to be not okay, well, then they might be more apt to grab another person and be like, I'm struggling, man.
Right. Right.
you know
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of setting that culture in the workplace too that's more supportive. I mean, I know you didn't write about it, but I've heard you talk about how amazing your new workplace is in terms of your coworkers, and how mutually supportive all of that
yeah,
is, and how taking care of yourselves is part of the culture there, which is pretty amazing.
it's huge.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing, even with the highest person up all the way down to the newbie, which is me. Is taking care of yourself and doing what you need to do with no consequence, just support.
Yeah, that's
And
beautiful.
so
And
yeah.
then you're showing up and getting done what needs to be done, right? I mean,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
When I don't know if you're done, like, are you done highlighting the stuff? Because
yeah, I think so.
I wanted to point out, can I point out one thing that you didn't
Yeah.
point out from your
Yeah.
piece? Because I thought I totally related to it, but I didn't write about it in my piece. Was when you talk about helping another person who, when you were in charge one time at work, and a colleague came in and she was just very distraught and needed to not be there, and you said, go, and I'm going to take care of it, and basically I've got your
Yes.
back. I think that's such an awesome thing that you did, and it comes from our experience, right? Just knowing that's the kind of thing that helps us to be able to make it through it better.
Yeah. It was really great to be able to show up for her like that. She was very brand new to the workforce, very young, and just trusted in me enough to say, I can't, and just crying. And I said, go home.
Mhm.
And I was asked, well, why did you do that? And I said, she needed to go home.
Yeah.
And, still trying to pry, I
Mhm.
still said nothing. And I've long since worked with her, but she still, hits me up and
Uh,
and tells me that made a big impact on her. So,
that's
uh,
awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. I mean, it's just, it's the polar opposite of those. Another thing that I think you and I both touched on a little bit, of these like feelings of like usefulness and fear of judgment, and, all of
yeah,
this stuff that when, and it's in part of, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in society that kind of reinforces those feelings,
yeah,
and how we get treated in the workplace by our coworkers and employers, is part of that too, which is probably a good segue for me to share a little bit of my piece.
yeah.
I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. I wrote two huge pieces. I had so much. Well, I had one huge piece and one shorter piece. I just had a lot to say. And And I realized actually that there's probably a lot more to say. This is just such a central issue for me, and part of my own thinking in the beginning of this, like why we should be doing this, is because, you know, in most cases, the only way to have enough money to get all of our needs reasonably met is to work.
Yeah.
Right. And we have some uh social, you know, supports, public supports out there, like when you really can't, but they barely let you make ends meet, and sometimes not even. I mean, so unless you are really independently wealthy, the way that you're going to be able to take care of your health and get enough food to eat and have a decent place to sleep, you know, all of that is to have, you know, some reasonably stable employment. And so, you know, as I look back over my experiences, I just how um how tenuous all of that was for me. And in the first one, I talked about a number of different jobs, really starting out talking about my early adult kind of career. You know, I mean, my first jobs in my life started at 15, and I was waiting tables and, you know, doing uh, um, a lot of, you know, I had one retail job and some different things like that. And while I was going through school, but um, you know, in my first, what I considered a career type job, uh, well, not in my first one, but in one of my early ones, I I really struggled because I felt like um, I had to hide. I was dealing with then a lot of depression, in particular, related to childhood and early adulthood sexual assaults, and hadn't really gotten good care and healing around that. I mean, granted, that stuff is lifetime stuff too. But that said, you know, I had this job, and a number of those early jobs where it was just like you've got to be, you know, you've really got to hide all of that, and that just took this huge toll on me and actually made it hard for me to have healthy social relationships at work, which, by the way, I've seen some recent research about how important that is to just our kind of um, positive mental health in general. And so when you have a climate that basically says, oh, don't show any of that, and, you know, you got to have your smiling face on all the time, and not let anybody know you have something going on, that's it's just really difficult. So then I then kind of went on to talk about the really horrifying turn my life took after my daughter died, in an accident that we were in together. So not only did I have unbelievable grief, I had PTSD from the accident as well. So then really showing up anywhere on a regular basis, and not just then, I'm still sometimes now, showing up anywhere on a regular basis is tough for me. Sometimes it, you know, it's hard to predict when depression will make it difficult for me to do any basic tasks in the day. And there's other times when I have overwhelming anxiety or nightmares that keep me, prevent me from getting decent sleep and make me, you know, and then I have the emotional tax that comes with that, the drain that comes with that the following day as well. So it's just really hard to be productive. Um, and in fact, I actually started consulting in large part because it gave me the flexibility, to do work differently, and has helped me to earn enough of a living that I can stay housed and take care of all of those things that I mentioned before, while also being able to take a day when I need to, take a half a day when I need to, whatever it is that I'm have that flexibility to be able to care for myself. Um, and in all of my prior jobs, that just wasn't the case. We had certain a number of days of leave, which I totally understand. But when I pushed up against them, then I was faced with, having to tell or make some reason why it was okay. And I was told that my job may be in jeopardy. If I took leave, I'm like, it's okay, I'll take leave without pay. And they're like, yeah, well, you'd be written up, and your job may in jeopardy for that. And and then I couldn't say what it was for, because it had been made very, very clear to me, for a variety of reasons, that if I showed up, that I had, or that I let on that I had any of these big emotional and mental health challenges, that my job, in fact, not just my job, but my entire career would be at risk. In that one job in particular that I was talking about, where there's this real pressure to fit in, and they had this emphasis on health. And I remember my boss telling me, to just really try not to stand out, keep my clothes really just really plain and basic, and just basically don't ruffle any feathers. And that's what I was going to need to do to succeed. And then another higher up was, telling me about this state agency leader, who broke down in public. And he said, in no uncertain terms, she will never work in this field again. And I took that inside of me so much. It was like, okay, message heard. You do not let on that you are a human being that is suffering with something. You find some way to make it through it. But I tell you what, that only compounds and makes things worse, as for me anyway, when I can't have the space to deal with it, and then other things at work start to suffer as a result. So uh, there are a couple of things, though, I do want to point out that that before I move on, let me just, that fit thing is an issue. Like, that is not about belonging at all. It's about conforming, and that is not helpful. And this, I love organizations that get all excited about health and wellness and all this stuff, but when they only have the kind of hunky-dory end of that, and that there's no, that actually sends there's this pressure to act as if all the time, and that is not, and that can actually be pretty damaging for somebody who is already suffering. So on the other hand, that I do want to emphasize a couple of things that have been helpful. One of them is that flexibility I said I found in consulting, but it's also the flexibility I was able to find, and almost kind of forced to find, when I hit a super, super low and needed to take a step out of my field. And I was trying to get jobs waiting tables because I figured I was good at that. I could do it again, but no one wanted to hire me. That or any other kinds of like hospitality jobs, things that I thought were a fine proxy to the kind of work that I did. But I wouldn't, they wouldn't hire me because they all told me I was overqualified. They were afraid I would feel bored. And I'm like, man, I just need to pay my bills. Um, let me work. So luckily I had the a wonderful mother-in-law who helped cleaning business. So mother-in-law helped me, helped buy supplies for that cleaning business and to pay for printing of flyers. And so, and that also gave me quite a bit of flexibility. Plus, thank goodness for the kindness of somebody in my social network to help overcome the startup cost of that, because otherwise that would have been a real problem for me too. And I guess the last thing that I want to point out that was really I really do want to point out a couple of state agency I worked for, as well as a county government that I worked for, that were both really pretty wonderful. First of all, I was working for the state agency when my daughter had excellent leave available to me. It wasn't enough. I mean, it was generous. Let me say, it was months, and I needed that. I needed more, but at least that helped through the very worst of it. And my colleagues and supervisor were just amazing. They were so beautiful and wonderful. Like, makes me want to cry just thinking, just how beautiful and wonderful they were. I'm forever grateful to them. Um, and then later, I had uh, an incident when I worked for a county government, and I was actually attacked and triggered a bunch of uh, uh, horrible trauma, and I also got some good leave. And really, my supervisor was unbelievably supportive. So um, I guess my one caveat to that is like that I want to see all the time. My caveat is that if it's great, it's usually great right at first. But this stuff is life, the stuff, my stuff anyway, both the sexual abuse and my daughter dying are lifelong for me. Most of the time I am, feeling pretty darn good these days, and it doesn't mean it doesn't still come up, because it sure does. And I need the space to be able to handle it, and the support to not feel so alone, so I don't kind of spiral downward and end up in that kind of sense of hopelessness. So I'm really excited. I want to say I'm really excited that Bridget is joining us, because they're
Oh,
with her, and maybe throwing out some of the ideas that I put at the end of my longer piece. But before we bring Bridget on, anything else kind of come up for you while I was talking through the important pieces to me in my experience?
no, just not really. I can just I bet how hard it was when you had to leave your regular, profession and try to do something else, and you're being told that you're overqualified. And I've actually had that happen to me a little bit too, but
Yeah. Well,
basically
yeah. Go ahead.
I don't have too much. I'm just thinking about it all kind of.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah. No worries. No worries. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that part there was a point where I thought, oh, am I ever going to be able to work in my field again? If I'm not going to be able to work in my field again, will I be, happy? Because it really, part of the reason I kind of went through at the beginning of that first piece, so much of my education and work achievement background is because it was a big part of my identity.
Yeah.
And when that was no longer of all this stuff, as I went through all this stuff, those were the things I could always hold on to.
Right.
They were like an anchor to me. And so without it, I mean, I was really lost.
Well, and not to mention how hard you work to get there.
Yeah.
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 I understand that.
Yeah. And I know there are lots of other people who struggle with similar things. And, I have a good friend who, had to step out of a very successful career of hers for similar kinds of issues, and, watch her kind of struggle with her place in the world because of that too. And not always having the greatest of supports around, including me, by the way. I have sucked too. So we're all human. Oh, at any rate, we could go on and on. I am super excited. I would love to invite our guests to come join us here on screen. Bridget Daisy, Executive Director of Clackamas Workforce Partnership in Oregon. Bridget, will you come on? Oh, I see you there. Yay, it's so good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And nice to meet you, Nobly.
Nice to meet you.
I'm excited about our conversation and just hearing about what both of you were sharing about your experiences in the workplace. I mean, we spend, as humans, as adults, we spend so much time in a job that it should feel better than it does sometimes. So thank you for sharing your stories and being vulnerable.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited as well.
So, yeah, super excited. Actually, can we just kind of start like learning just a little bit about you generally, Bridget? You a little bit, whatever you want to share about yourself, your background, what you do now, and why this matters to you. Why you said yes.
Yeah. So Bridget Daisy, she, her. I live in Beaverton, Oregon. So yes, not far from you, Nobly. Yeah. I was raised. I was born in Hawaii. Raised in the Marines a little bit when I was young, and then my family settled in Iowa. I'm the mother of 2 adult children, 2 beautiful women who know who they are, and I am every day amazed and proud of the people that they have become. I have 2 cats. I work for a nonprofit with the most incredible team of professionals. I get to surround myself with people who really care about community. I am a systems thinker. My vocation is social work. I have my bachelor's and master's in social work. I've worked in substance abuse prevention, cessation, intervention, worked in the criminal justice system, in education, and now in workforce development. And I really see how things intersect with one another, and how our lives are so complex and intertwined within all of these other systems, and how our communities tend to silo or try to bifurcate issues. And we all know that it's just all one thing, and that we are whole people, and it's hard to like tease all of those things out. So I like to think about things from, high up in the clouds, and I have people around me who can like pull me back to earth. But I love people. I love this planet. I love animals. I love laughing and have a good time. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice.
I love it. You wait for the dad joke at the end for love and laughing.
Uh,
And I think I think I included, why this topic matters a little bit in that because workforce. So, I work in the workforce development system, and workforce is just another way to say people. And we can call people students or employees or laborers or mothers or all the roles that all the roles that we have and all the hats that we wear have a name association, but at the end of the day, we're just talking about what somebody needs and the community. And to your point earlier, Megan, people need a job for the most part, not everybody, but most of us need to work in order to survive and thrive or build wealth or just have a roof over our heads. And so to acknowledge that workers are people at the end of the day that need to feel supported. Most of the managers or managers in general, supervisors, just need to remember like the humanity that comes with overseeing personnel and people.
It's so funny. Like I listen to you, Bridget, and I think, yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense. It seems so obvious and evident, and yet and I think some of that, more of that is happening these days. More people think that way, whether an employer or a coworker or whatever. But for most of my adult life and before, but I wasn't aware of it before, most of my adult life, the message that you leave your personal life at home when you go to work, that was the way to be. And if you didn't do that, there was something wrong with you, something bad about you were doing something wrong.
Megan, it paused out a little bit there. Just repeat your last couple of sentences.
Okay. Sorry about that. I may have a little bit of a internet instability issue. Oh, technology. So I was talking about how it feels like there's a shift, and how most of my life it was you leave your personal life at home was the bottom line, and that you were bad. Honestly, there's something wrong with you, and you needed to change and just leave your shit at home if you wanted to have a job. And so I was curious if I'm making that up in my mind, that there's actually a shift underway in that way of thinking, or if I just happen to be around a few really great people.
Well, I would imagine that you are probably around many great people, and I think that you're right. I think there is a progress that human beings are making, especially in America. And it's not universal, but I do think that there is a greater acknowledgement that whole health or health includes mental health, and that the more we can bring our whole selves to work, that we don't have to feel like I have to be a different person at work versus at home. You can be your true and authentic self. That there are real benefits to the workplace with people who can be authentic and feel like I don't turn myself off at any part of the day. And so what you see is what you get. And that's a beautiful work environment to live in. I do think that there is still work to be done, 100%. And employers, because there is I wouldn't say there's a people shortage, although in Oregon, for example, we actually lost a population in our most recent census. So there were people who left and we didn't regain them through births and with people moving here. And so it's in some ways, some people it feels like there's less people, but there is not less people, but there is a quality jobs or a good job shortage. There are more people that are living paycheck to paycheck and, and just trying to make ends meet and living just barely below the means and certainly not feeling like they're thriving. And employers now, because they're having a hard time with recruitment and retention, they're starting to pick up on, oh, if somebody's not happy, I might not be able to keep them. How do I keep them happy? So I think culture is coming out more. How employers recruit is changing. Sometimes a little bit quicker in probably more urban areas than in more rural. But I think the tide is starting to turn, and people are also recognizing that there's more power in collectiveness and like talking about wages and talking about like this is how I am treated at work versus this is how you're treated at work, and that's different. And we need to talk about like how some of us need to be treated differently for various reasons, but it's different because of who you are and what you need, not because of the color of your skin or your gender, because of like the individual self. And so I'm hopeful that that'll keep getting better.
Yeah, that does sound, I mean, that sounds and feels hopeful to me. One thing that's bubbling to me, Nobly and I talked about this a little bit the other day, is as I think about that, I'm thinking, oh, is that across all kinds of jobs, or is that in these maybe not so much, is it happening in entry level jobs as much as it is in, management or say specialist type jobs, Nobly and I have both spent plenty of time working in restaurants and things like that. And, it's pretty clear to me that, experience is getting treated like you're disposable. So
I would say absolutely it looks different in manufacturing versus construction versus healthcare versus education versus food service. Definitely. I think it looks different in different industries. But again, I do think that people are coming together in different ways. We're seeing more fast food workers unionize or seek unionizing. Childcare workers. My daughter is a proud union childcare worker.
Nice.
Just went through the process in the last couple of years, and in the care industry is one of the lowest paid workers and professionals in our country. I mean, next to food service and hospitality and retail, we have a real issue with emotional labor in this country, and our workplaces weren't built for women. Our workplaces weren't built for people with disabilities. Our workplaces weren't built for people of color, for people who are different, for people who show up as their true selves, and that feels different or not the norm or the way that our society has projected us on that. So I think again, it's happening. It could be faster. It could be more so. And I think a lot of it has to do with people feeling the confidence that their voice matters and that their job matters and that their skills matter. And that when they bring themselves to an employer or workplace, like that should be mutually beneficial. I'm giving my talent and my time to you.
Right.
That's worth something, whatever it is. And frankly, people who work in the food service industry or in hospitality, they're interacting with people who don't have anyone else. where they might be the only smile or hello that somebody hears for an entire day. And that is meaningful work. That is important work in our community. We cannot undervalue that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, here, I'm like super applauding inside. Yeah. Yeah. Nobly, I don't want to dominate if anything is coming up for.
No, I worked, I was the fast food queen of the 90s. I think I worked at every single fast food place, and I very much was that smiling person. And it made me feel so good to be able to tell a lady who probably doesn't get complimented a lot that she's beautiful and that her shirt looks fantastic. And the widow that's just sitting in there for hours with his cup of coffee. I'm busy, I'm sweeping the floor, but I am in a full-blown conversation with this man. And as a result, I had so many repeat customers, so many regulars that would literally just like wait for that. And it's just, it is important. And it doesn't matter, if you're making 3 figures a year or if you're making minimum wage, just to be treated like you have some worth. If nothing else, you're in your uniform and you're showing up and you're doing your best. And a lot of the problems, in my opinion, is people aren't taking the time to train properly. And so then they're just like, well, why aren't you doing this right? And it's like, I've been here 5 minutes and you showed me one time. Yeah. And so I think that proper, training and stuff too is crucial for people's mental health and for people to feel good all around when they come to work. How well you showed me.
Yeah.
100%. There's actually a trend happening across the country, and we've jumped on to that trend in our metro area. But more communities are creating quality jobs frameworks and standards, and describing and talking about what is a quality job. It's not just wages and salary. It's not just benefits. It's opportunities for advancement. It's professional development. It's feeling safe at work. And so in the metro area, we created with a council and a group of partners and job seekers and people who care about what work looks like in our community, created our quality jobs framework. And there are 7 tenets, and only one of them is wages. One of them is benefits. And again, talking about all those other components like professional development and training. And what's a quality job to me is different than what's a quality job for you. And I think that's the thing for employers and industry partners to recognize and understand is people show up to work and for work for different reasons. And and those are important reasons to acknowledge and talk about, and also to create an environment where like, I see you, I know that you need this, and Brian needs this. So that is on the onus of the managers and the supervisors, and training is super important to do that. But also so is caring about people. People who are in those types of leadership positions. That's a lot of power to have over someone. And at the end of the day, we're equals, we're peers. Even if like there's a position title that's different, like we walk out the door, we're still people. Yeah. So I think there's a mindfulness that needs to be taught, because it's not taught in schools and acknowledged.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, when you are attending to that human piece of it, I think at least for me, my experience is I rebound much more quickly if I'm able to take this time that I know I need right now. Then I'm able to bring my full self back into my work much more quickly. Whereas if I'm having to hide, kind of suck it up, work through it, I'm going to be doing not as good of work for a lot longer. And then maybe running into other challenges at work and like, maybe interpersonal issues, a variety of other things that slip. So like I heard you say earlier, Bridget, you still got to work. Yeah, of course we got to work, and we're human beings. And so if there's some degree of compassion or, some system wise ways we can do better around that. And I know it's not always possible in the same job. Like, sometimes we have to shift to other things with our conditions, but having options and flexibility and some compassion is really important. And we want to hear like several other things from you, Bridget. You've already kind of talked a little bit about something sounds like something that you're advocating for, at least supporting in the broader workforce system, is this quality jobs, or maybe that's something, yeah, I think you said that's already happening, but also like curious, resources or that already exist that can help folks who may be struggling, curious about how you've handled all this in your own workplace, as well as, any other great trends out there that employers and even coworkers might be looking to going forward. So kind of leave it to you to pick up for whichever of those like really sparks your fancy to start talking about next.
Yes. So definitely resources. Several employers purchase or buy into EAPs or employee assistance programs. They can be a great conduit for information and resources, counselors if needed. And so definitely if someone works somewhere that has an EAP, to check out what that resource is. In all communities across the United States, there are programs through vocational rehabilitation, and those are federal dollars that are usually overseen by state agencies or local community county agencies. But the idea of vocational rehab is to help folks in our community with work if a disability or mental health issue is getting in their way of being successful in work. Voc Rehab is there to assist with both job getting as well as job keeping. And so exploring and learning more about what vocational rehabilitation services look like in your community is something that is available for those that are in the job seeker world or working somewhere that doesn't have an EAP program, because vocational rehab is there to also assist people with maintaining their employment.
Oh, that's cool. So, it's funny. I've always heard voc rehab, for a variety of things, but I never really understood what it was or who could access it. I mean, is it just as simple as like Googling and doing some searching, or are there some,
Yeah, so Voc Rehab is part of the America's Job Center network, which is several funding streams and programs administered by the Department of Labor. So the Department of Labor and the federal government funds all of the states for these workforce programs, and Voc Rehab is one of them. It's Title IV of the law WIOA, so I won't get into those details, but what I would say is either Googling Voc Rehab in your area or your America's Job Center, or jumping on, and I can share after the fact just some links to how to find your America's Job Center in your area. Like in Oregon, they're known as WorkSource, and up in Washington, they're known as WorkSource, but that's not the same brand across the country. So yeah, doing a quick search would get you the information. Then the National Alliance for Mental Illness, or NAMI, there are chapters, I believe, nationwide. So they're a great resource to connect with someone who's a peer, talk about like, hey, what kinds of resources do I need? And they really are a huge advocacy organization. And that kind of leads me to What does advocacy look like for people who are different, or people who have mental health issues, or people who are struggling with trauma, or coping skills, or whatever the case may be? Legislators and electeds need to hear about what you're experiencing in your community. And I know in Oregon, there's many bills and legislative actions that are kind of on the table right now related to behavioral and mental health. And so telling your story and talking about it, or calling your legislators, like, I'm really struggling with this. Your state representatives and senators are there to represent you. And so contacting them and saying, like, I'm struggling with this. I'm having a really hard time looking for work, or I'm having a hard time keeping my work because of this, or whatever information you're able to give to them, so that they can make better decisions when they're signing on to bills and making votes. So by not expressing, what you're going through, for all of those others that don't have their voice, like, try to find your voice and share that with legislators, because we do need law changes. We do need to help employers in ways that they don't understand, that they don't know. I know a lot of industries where to your point earlier, where you check yourself at the door. You are now our employee. You are not who you should, you're not who you are when you go home. And so it's going to take a culture shift within an organization to make that happen. And policy change can help make that happen, and through training expectations and setting some standards. So those are just a few ideas that come, but certainly there are, in every state, in every community, there are unique places that people get what they need. And I also, because I think that, we are also often on social media, going to, a site like Reddit and just figuring, like, asking a question anonymously doesn't hurt, to, try to gain support in a local community to make something happen.
Nice. I'm so glad you brought up talking to your legislator. I'm grateful for all of that you shared. There's some really good stuff. I was thinking about talking to legislators. So, a good portion of my career is talking to legislators, right? And so I'm really versed in that. But just a few years ago, I had my first real drive to reach out to my representative in the state house for a personal issue. I had never done that before, and I found myself really nervous about it. And then when I just sucked it up, I was, I'm do this anyway. Like I've talked to legislators, no biggie. But so, but I psyched myself up, and I actually went and talked to him in person. I was so floored by how generous and welcoming and attentive he was. I would really, I know not everybody is like that, but you're right. It is their job. It is what they do. And it is the heart of their job. So encouraging folks to not worry about having everything just right. You show up exactly as you are, stumble through whatever it is that you have to say. It's okay to, go ahead and just, find your gumption and go for it. Love that.
Yes, 100%. Life is messy, and so is government. So they're and they're doing this work, and at least in Oregon, they're part-time legislators. And I know that that's not the case across all of the states or all of our electeds. So they're doing this because they care about their communities. And so my hope is that everybody would be met with someone who's like, I really care what you have to say, even if I might disagree with where you're coming from or what side of the political aisle you fall on. but that they should be listening because that is their job. That's what they're elected to do.
Yeah. Love it. I'm actually thinking we'll take you up on it, sending us any links, and we'll share those out. I'm also going to share out how to find your legislators, because not everybody knows how to do that. And so I'll add that link in there as well. I'm curious. Go ahead, Bridget.
Another resource, and I'm going to get off this call and I'm just gonna be like, oh, I should have said this one. But another one that I know that it does exist in many states is disability rights, like a disability rights office where there are attorneys on staff. And in Oregon, it's Disability Rights Oregon. They're another really great resource to either connect with a program or to or again, for them to capture, if there's a struggle, the best people to give it to, especially when we're talking about policy change, is lawyers. So I would say the disability rights centers are a fabulous resource in communities.
Awesome. I love that. And if you do think of others, please feel free to pass them along. We will share those out for sure. I want to have you, mostly because I'm in such awe for what a leader you are in your own organization. I'm really longing to hear you talk about that a little bit. I want to just pause real quick. Just Nobly, anything else popping for you before we move?
No, I also am in awe and just great to be in, Bridget's. We share the same state, and I'm just getting all this great information. I don't a lot of this stuff that she's talking about, I honestly didn't know, and I've worked in Oregon for 30 years.
Yeah.
So this is great for the listeners to be able to have this information, and I'm grateful. I'm just listening and absorbing, and I'm just happy over here.
Awesome. Well, then, I for folks who are listening, I have had the pleasure of working alongside Bridget, and watch Bridget work with her team there, and who are all wonderful too. And I'm so hoping you'll tell us a little bit about what you do, how you show up as a leader in your organization, and what difference you think that makes for folks.
So I am the executive director of Clackamas Workforce Partnership, and I've held this role since 2014. But I was with the same organization since 2008. So I really know the community that I'm working in, and what it's about, and what it cares about, and where its beautiful spots are, and where are those spots or opportunities for improvement. And because I've been working in workforce development, workforce is all about people. So I get to surround myself with outstanding people. And since I took leadership, I've really operated under the motto or the mantra with all of my team as they're being onboarded with all of our policies and all of the things is you take care of yourself first, you take care of your family second, you bring whatever, all of what that's left back to work. And if you go out of order with that, that something will shift, something may break, something will hurt. So you have to go in that order, because it's like putting the oxygen mask on in an airplane. So self-care is truly really important to me. I don't want to work somewhere where that's not acknowledged or supported. And so I really I ask my staff to follow those simple instructions, and keep me in the loop. They're professionals. We hire them to be professionals. I'm not going to tell you how to manage your calendar. If I'm not hearing, scuttlebutt out in the community, then I probably, you're doing okay. And I'll keep tabs on the things that are happening. But I do like to know what my staff is up to and what's going on with them personally. So as the pandemic was hitting, we moved to virtual very quickly, and that was a huge transition for us as an organization. Like all of the Zoom suddenly became something that we had to have, and we had gone through a staff retreat process with this amazing group locally known as the Goodness Collaborative, and they had walked us through just ways that we could kind of manage our time in our staff meetings, and they helped us create this dashboard where we were tracking like what was going on in the week, what happened, what successes are we celebrating from the week prior, what goals do we have. But one thing that is a constant is every Monday when we meet for the first time in the week, which is in the morning, we do a pulse check. And I ask everyone how they're feeling personally and how they're feeling professionally on a Likert scale of 1 to 5. And some people will come in and be like, I'm all fours, all's good. And sometimes people will come in and say, I am a 5 with work or a 4 with work and a 2 at home. And that just gives everyone an opportunity to throw out a heart emoji or say I'm here for you, or whatever you need from whoever you need it from. Like you saying that you are a 1 or a 2 means that you're needing something. And so even if it's us sending you our air hugs or saying like, hey, do you want to grab a cup of coffee? That is made available to staff on a weekly basis. And they take care of each other. I don't have to be there for staff to, do a check-in. Recently, I've had staff who have struggled with mental health stuff, struggled with loss of family members, and they just show up for each other. And so that's the kind of environment that I want to work in. And so I will continue to keep fostering that. And then another thing that we're in the midst of doing is updating our employee handbook and our policies, our employee policies. And we have been cross-referencing our existing policies with the anti-racist HR handbook, which we found to be very helpful in reviewing, how do we want to show up as employers. So we're looking through it with the eye on like how employees feel about some of the things that we are expecting of them, or dress code, or things that may feel outdated. Let's talk about that. And we're actually setting the table because it's a nonprofit that I work for. We're having a couple of our board members actually join me, and then 2 staff representatives to work through the employee recommendations that we've created and come up with. It's not a union setting, but I want everyone on the team to feel like they can work together to collectively negotiate like what our organization looks and feels like. So that is something that we're in the midst of right now.
That's awesome. And so I've had some employers invite I open it for people to say to give their opinion on or to say what they would like to say change, but it definitely in an atmosphere of low trust, so people can't, it's pretty clear that you can't really say everything that you would like to see change, or be very open about what some policy that's in there that's challenging for you. So I'm curious about how you foster. I mean, maybe it's just because of that very human environment you've fostered anyway, but that allows people to be able to speak up.
I think that the environment kind of breathes in, you know, like, be honest if there's something not working. For example, in this last year, we had been, you know, since before the pandemic, we were operating on, you know, how we reimburse for mileage from point A to point B. And, you know, historically as a country, we haven't, you know, from the moment you leave your house to the moment that you step into your employer's doors, that hasn't been covered. And that's the way our policy had been reflected. And since the pandemic's hit, we've moved to virtual offices and people working from home. And so when they leave their house to go somewhere for work, they're leaving their place of work. And so we're wanting, that was impressed on us by staff members who's like, this isn't fair. I drove X amount of hours to get somewhere. I had to deduct commuter miles. I don't commute on a regular basis anymore. Like, that's not your expectation. So anyway, it gave all, you know, leadership, like, oh, we do have to acknowledge that our workplace has changed and our policies have to reflect that. And so does our response to that. So that doesn't exist in every workplace. And I think it's unfortunate that people can't, that they can't voice the things that they need changed within an organization. And if people are really feeling like they don't have a voice or they can't share, I just encourage you to check out your America's Job Center and look for, there are employers that are hiring across the country in various industries and fields right now. It is a seller's market. And so I think and employers are slowly coming on to that. And
it's so kind of like voting with your feet, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
In the next 5 to 10 years, I hope we lose a lot of those really toxic or nasty employers. I hope that they don't make it through inflation and all of these like fits and starts or peaks and valleys of our economy. Because if you don't treat your employees right, or you're profiting and capitalizing on their labor and you're not treating them well, I hope you don't stay in business. You don't deserve to stay in business. That's Bridget Daisy saying that. I'm sure my boards heard me just say that. Bridget, no, but I think they think similar things. Like, who wants to work somewhere toxic and gross, or that you can't talk about the things like, this isn't working for me anymore.
Right. And it has real impacts, right? I mean, when there are all these horrible stories about people, you know, I mean, I'm not going to the extremes, but of people freaking out because of these horrible, toxic, you know, oppressive work environments they're in. And, you know, I mean, shoot, if you're in this horribly oppressive work environment and then you're driving afterwards and, you know, driving erratically because you're so upset about the whole thing, you know, that's bad for everybody. So just as an example,
I think there's been, I can't find them right now, but if I do find them, I'll send them your way. But I have seen that, like, one of the number one reasons people leave their jobs is because of supervision, is because of managers, is because somebody else treated them a way that wasn't right, that didn't feel good. And that again, like that information is power for employers. If you know that there's that bad egg that's treating people bad, like, you need to adjust, you need to like nip that in the bud, because nobody deserves to be treated poorly.
Yeah. Oh, so we're coming close to the end of our time, and there's so many things I want to ask you. Just real quick before going into a kind of a closing round, are these kinds of things that you're talking about the kinds of things that you advocate for more broadly in the workforce system, and maybe beyond that?
Yes, and I would say that there are local workforce boards that serve every community across the country. I haven't met all of the workforce board directors, but I've met a lot of them, and they're pretty darn great. And really the idea is to create that public-private partnership that seeks to change things and ensure that people are feeling supported and that employers are getting what they need. People aren't supported, employers aren't getting what they need, our economy is going to struggle, our community is going to struggle. So there's a mutual benefit for all of those things to feel harmonious. And so my work is really to think about those intersections of what helps people work and learn in our communities, from food security to education, to transportation, housing security. All those things impact somebody's ability to work and learn. And so and everything's workforce now, because all of those industries are struggling to find people. And so we can't keep separating these issues out when people are messier or more complex than that. That if I work in construction, but I'm struggling with childcare, and childcare is struggling with finding childcare workers, and they're struggling with finding childcare workers because of wages and also because there's mental health issues that are not being. So it's just like it's this web of life that exists across our community. And so there does need to be people who are thinking about how these things work together. And that's really what the workforce board does, is tries to make sense of these various funding streams and tries to braid and blend them in a way that means greater access for the people that come through our doors. And most of the people that are priority for us are people with disabilities, people from low income situations, people who struggle or have barriers built for them or against them to be successful in our communities. And that is something that many workforce boards are really taking an active role on and thinking through or helping communities adjust, because it really is a team sport.
Yeah.
And you know, like the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise anyone. Like, we still need a village. We are very communal creatures. We need each other. We are very connected, and our workplaces should feel as such.
Oh, geez, that is beautiful. That's a beautiful. I assume that, like, what else is there to say after that, right? Well, I'll just pile on one little thing, because as I hear all of this and thinking about that really human orientation that you have, and the intersection, I just kept thinking about our last episode where we talked about, the theme was "We Matter," and that there's just so much that I genuinely believe that each of us has to offer. And when we're, in these, maybe we're just struggling with impacts of trauma, or a more organic mental health issue, or a number of other life issues that may be coming up, we may not show up or present all that great right off front, but when there's enough support, because I believe we heal as a community, we do better and thrive as a community, that when that's there, then those gifts and those natural wonderful things about us actually get to come out more, and we're all better for that.
I would absolutely agree with that. And there's nothing stopping us as a species from acknowledging each of our own humanity, and we are going to be a lot more creative and a lot more productive. Well, we're going to be able to do better if we feel taken care of and safe, and that we can show up. So that benefits everybody.
Love it. Nobly, do you have closing remarks before we transition out of here?
don't think so.
All right. All right. Well, you get to wrap us up with our humor of the evening. But first, I want to say thank you so much, Bridget, for being with us. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and I will follow up with some of these resources. And if there are any questions that come as a result of this, don't hesitate to reach back out and say like, hey, what was that one thing, or did something else come to mind? Because we're all in this together. And
yay. I love that.
Thank you so much.
You and talk more, as a fellow Oregonian.
Yeah, definitely.
Good people in the good state. It's a very good thing. We really appreciate it. And with that, next week we will be talking about mental health systems. In particular, really leaning into just our experiences with mental health systems. We're going to end up talking about mental health systems in different ways. And over the time that we are in this program. But tomorrow we're gonna root into some of our experiences. We're going to be joined by Christina Hallberg, who lives with bipolar 1 disorder, and will share her own powerful story with us. So with that, we bring to our close with our first two medicines. And first up, the joke.
It's more of a question-esque type of joke. If you, oh my gosh, if you wear cowboy clothes, does that make you ranch dressing?
Nice.
I know. It might, it's not the funniest one I got, but it's laughable.
It's good. It made me laugh. So we're always good with that. And with that, cheers, my friend.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.